there was the PWHL game at Madison Square Garden, and there was a huge like Colgate alumni event because there were so many in that game, and we all went down to it and we're like, wow, we are at a sold out women's hockey game at Madison Square, and this is unbelievable. And any one of us has the opportunity to play in this league, and I think it was just like we were like, wow, so shocked at how big it's become and how awesome it is. Like, I love it.
Hello and welcome back to Rinkside Rundown, the podcast that brings you inside the world of women's hockey, one story at a time. I'm your host, Chris Sinclair, and today I'm joined by Casey Borgiel, a defender from Port Huron, Michigan, a graduate of Colgate University, and someone who has emerged as one of the most dynamic offensive defenders in the NCAA. Casey, welcome to the show. How you doing?
Good, how are you? I'm honored to be on the show and excited to talk.
Well, thank you. I'm honored that you take the time to join the show. You have so many things going on right now, so this is an honor to have the chance to chat with you and learn a little bit more about you. I'm excited. You ready to dive in?
Yes, let's get into it.
Let's do it. Okay. Do you remember what first drew you to the game of hockey and when maybe it kind of turned from more of a hobby, more of a this is fun to I'm going to take this a lot more seriously?
So I have a brother. I have two older siblings, a brother and a sister, and my brother, they're 4 years older than me, and he started playing hockey, and I always was like, I want to get on the ice with them, and then it was like learn to skate, put up a rink in our backyard every year, and I just constantly wanted to be on the ice, even if I could barely stand up in my skates, and then it was time to go from learn to skate to learn to play hockey in my hometown, and right then and there, I was like, all right, I love hockey. This is the sport. And then around 10 or 11 years old, it was soccer or hockey, and I knew instantly it was gonna be hockey that I wanted to pursue, so
What was that adjustment like for you to go from learn to play to like actually really learn how to skate? What was that adjustment like for you? Were there a lot of bumps and bruises, or was it did it was at any point was it discouraging, or were you just like this is definitely what I want to be doing?
it was at one of those age groups. I mean, there wasn't really women's hockey where I'm from in Port Huron. It was you play with the boys, and eventually I went to Little Caesars where it was women's hockey, but it was one of those things where it was like the best players on the team were the ones that knew how to skate. So it was just always about like, all right, you have to know how to skate. And that was like the transition period of, all right, who's gonna go to the next level is probably the better skaters. So
Well, and I mean, it seems to have paid off. Whatever that transition or however that transition went, it certainly paid off for you because you had a lot of success early on in your career, early on in your junior career, state championships, national championships, and including also some leadership roles along the way. When you look back on those years, what do you think those experiences meant for you? And how do you think those experiences, winning and being a leader in the process, what do you think that really did for you, your foundation in the game of hockey?
I mean, the Little Caesars core group of us, there was a large, like a number of us that grew up together. Right when Monterey had that first team on 12U, we kind of went all the way up to 19U together. And being surrounded by people, the group of us, we were just like, we love hockey, we want to play hockey. Everyone's goals was college hockey, and there's girls on that team that went to the next level and are on the national team, like Kirsten Sims, and just being surrounded by people that love the game and have the same goals as you constantly kinda just helped that, and it was fun. Every day we'd go to the rink. We'd all go to the rink an hour early just to hang out. So, that definitely helped a lot.
Well, and it's interesting you mentioned this because I've had the chance to speak with a few players who have gone through the Little Caesars program, and they all say the same thing that, like, even now, even to this day, they're still in touch, still in constant communication with many of those same players. What did it mean to you as well to be to grow up, to grow in the sport, to develop in the sport with the same group of people? Like that must have really been helpful that you're all kind of able to experience the highs and lows, or in your case, a lot of highs throughout your junior career, but do it together.
I mean, it was definitely awesome, and, we have a group chat. It's pretty active still. There's a good chunk of us between the '04s and '05s that talk every day still, even in college, which is definitely, like, a time commitment to do that. And I mean, growing up, we lost in the national championship when we were in 14U, and we were kinda like, "Alright, we don't wanna experience this feeling again." So, we knew, like, let's just keep going. We, again, love coming to the rink, and let's take, like, Michigan. It was pretty, unbelievable to have that amount of girls that are of that caliber being in the same area at the same age group. So, we were all like, "Alright, this is something special, and let's just build with it." And it's fun too, so
Yeah, that makes all the difference too, certainly, for sure. So you had mentioned earlier about also playing soccer and making the ultimate decision rather quickly, it sounds, that hockey was going to be the sport for you to focus on. But what do you think it meant to be able to play multiple sports, to be able to play different sports as you were growing up and not necessarily solely focusing on hockey as much as, of course, it sounds like that was certainly the more passionate of the two sports.
Yeah, I definitely am thankful. My parents were, like, forcing me to play other sports, and, I mean, soccer was, like, the big sport. I did try out for volleyball. I played volleyball in the summer, and, basketball I tried out for, but I didn't make. Soccer was definitely I picked hockey because I don't like running, so that was a obvious decision to make for myself, but, just playing soccer, like, I'm very grateful for it. I think it's great for any athlete to play multiple sports just to use different muscles and to use a different, like, mental standpoint during the game. Every year after Caesars ended in, I don't know, say early April, parents were like, "Alright, it's soccer season now, and you're focused on soccer, and you're not picking up a hockey stick or skating at all until June." And that was kind of the thing, like, Little Caesars, we didn't have spring hockey, so it was very easy for all of us to, pick up another sport, and it was very my parents were very adamant on, like, "You play hockey 9 months a year, you need that break." So I'm definitely grateful that and I still do that to this day, like, when the ice gets taken out at college, it's like, "Alright, you're not skating until June." So
All right. So perfect segue into your collegiate career. We have to jump on this, so we'll do it. You started off with Holy Cross and you made an immediate impact. All rookie team seemed like you were that jump was super easy. At least at least on this on the score sheet, it looks like it was easy. But maybe could you talk about what that step was like for you to move from junior to collegiate? Like what was it really like for you to make the adjustments necessary to make that jump as successful as it clearly was?
I make this joke all the time kind of with some of my friends, but the first 15 games of college hockey, I remember every time I go into a corner battle, I'd probably get knocked over. Like, college hockey, everyone's stronger, they lift. We didn't I didn't really lift that much before going to college, so it was definitely, like, getting stronger and putting on a few pounds and getting extra work in the weight room to be able to play with these girls. Because it was also during COVID too, my freshman year, so I was playing against people that were 5, 6 years older than me, so that was the biggest adjustment.
And what do you think you learned most about yourself, both, of course, as a player in being able to make that adjustment during your time we're focused here on Holy Cross right now, but during that time, how do you think or what do you think you learned most about yourself, both on and off the ice?
I think for myself, it was like, all right, this is like people came to play D1 hockey here and it's a commitment and there's a lot going on. Like it's November, you've played however many games and you're tired constantly. Like there's no escape to getting tired, maybe the week you go home for Christmas, but and it's more about that commitment piece. And I like fell in love with that. I was like, all right, this is a grind. And when we don't have hockey, the days we had off, I was like, "What do I do with myself? I don't know what to do." So it was kinda like that's what I learned about myself, like, "Okay, I wanna do this for a very long time, not just 4 years in college."
Okay, so I feel like then that may have actually answered this next question already, but we'll dive into it a little bit more because then, of course, after 2 years at Holy Cross, you transferred over to Colgate. And so, before I get to the question that you may have already answered, what was that transition like for you? What was it like to learn new programs, to be around new people, to be, put in now different situations? What was that transition like for you?
There was definitely a transition just in team playing style, and the ECAC is very different than Hockey East, and I think many people can look onto that, and, um, I think just with that, I knew some people on Colgate's roster, like Kaya Malakino and, Alyssa Biederman, and they definitely helped too, like, knowing 2 people that I actually grew up with on the program, and just getting to know them through their friend group was made the transition a lot better, especially cracking into a class of people that was there for 2 years.
Mm. So then, like when you look at your offensive output, and I know that's only one aspect of your journey of your collegiate career, but like there was a significant jump from your first 2 years at Holy Cross to these last 2 years at Colgate in terms of your offensive output and really the stats across the board, of course. What do you think? You mentioned commitment. Certainly, you realize just like how much more committed everyone else is, and that you have to elevate yourself to that same spot, and of course, ideally exceed that. What were some of those other changes, or some of those other things that you noticed where you're like, okay, I got to get better, and how did that translate to the ice as well?
I think definitely the summer between Holy Cross to Colgate, I was very intimidated by Colgate because they went to the Frozen Four the year before, and I was like, "Wow, I'm going to this university to play hockey here. This is unbelievable." And I know, like, talking to Alyssa Biederman, I was like, "Okay, what are we doing? Like, what are the expectations?" And she's like, "Oh, it's gonna be fine, Casey." So that whole summer I was grinding because I was so scared. And I think that definitely helped, just trying to work through that summer and really be like, "Okay, it's underclassmen to upperclassmen jump and a new school, and I'm intimidated."
Mhm.
Um, so that definitely helped a bit, and I mean, the opportunity that, Colgate allowed me to have, like, put onto a power play unit with Christina Koltenkova standing in front of the net, like, that just it kinda just helps elevate your game naturally, and, I'm thankful for that opportunity.
So then also with that, of course, making those adjustments, having to, overcome that intimidation factor, maybe a little bit of imposter syndrome in there, mixed in there as well. You obviously the results speak for themselves. How good does it feel when you reflect on making that adjustment and the unknowns and being able to overcome the unknowns, the challenges, those perceived obstacles that you may have had going into that program? What does it mean to you to be able to come out the other side? And my goodness, what a career at Colgate you had!
I mean, like, that was right the transition was right when the PWHL was forming, and it was kind of for my thing, it was like, "All right, like, this is real now. There's an NHL for women's hockey, and the goals that we've dreamed about are real." So it started to kinda become like, "All right, this is work like, this is what you wanna do, and the hard work is hopefully paying off," and I think that's just kind of important to reflect on.
So you have been described, and I kind of alluded to this. Well, I didn't kind of allude to it in the open, but in terms of you are described as a very offensive minded defender. Um, but I want to actually throw it to you. How would you describe your style of play, and how do you think that it's evolved from your junior career to your time at Holy Cross to now, especially now that you're looking at, knocking on the door of that very same PWHL that you just spoke about?
I mean, definitely in junior, like, on again, just touching back to Little Caesars, the team was unbelievable. Like, I think we had 8 out of 9 forwards go D1 and to very elite universities at that. So kind of in Little Caesars, I didn't really have to do much like, there was no offensive really need from any of the defenders. And offensive defensemen kinda have blown up in the last few years, but not when I was in youth hockey. So that definitely like, I mean, it's more fun to play offense, but I didn't need to in Little Caesars because the forwards were just they would just handle everything in that aspect, and then going to Holy Cross, it was definitely it's hard to go from stage to stage, the transition to be offensive at all, and I think a lot of defenders would say that. And so it's really important to get down your defensive style and like good D zone habits, like mixing out forwards that are stronger than you and getting down with that. And I think that's something that I'm very grateful I discovered at Holy Cross was learning how to play defense at that higher level. Especially in Hockey East, that is a very defensive league, so that was important. And then going to Colgate, and the ECAC, which is more offensive of a league, and just the speed of the ECAC players and such like that, like, it just kind of allowed like, it was just like a natural default to go from, like, the defensive zone to joining the rush, like, that was just part of Colgate's game, was, "Oh, the weak side defense. You're gonna be
Mhm.
an option during the rush," and that just naturally started to happen. Playing in the offensive zone is a lot more fun than the defensive zone.
When we look at your collegiate career, so obviously we've talked a lot about on ice and the success and the growth you've had there. You majored in psychological science. So I do just want to pause and ask, what is psychological science? I have never heard of that program.
Really? So, when I declared at, Holy Cross, it was psychology, and then at Colgate, it's psychological science because there's more of a neuroscience, like, brain, cognitive way to it, in that aspect, so it was more like biology side of the brain and stuff like that, which is definitely something that was new to me too because it was slightly different than what I, originally declared to. But it's kinda just like the study of the brain and behavior, more of the social side of it than neuroscience.
Okay, perfect. So I'm glad that the definition of it was what I was expecting it to be, because then this next question wouldn't have made any sense at all. But I wanted to know as well. Then, knowing that you're majoring in such a degree, how has that maybe impacted, or how has that played into how you approach the game, how you navigate the ups and downs, how you also, reset mentally? Because that's a part of the game that I think is certainly underrated, is the mental side of the game. And well, you have a bit of an inside scoop there.
I mean, it's definitely, like, funny when you learn something in class, like a social psychology class, and then it happens in real life or, like, post-game, and it's like, "Oh, that actually is something I learned about in class last week, and it makes sense. This is gonna happen, this is how I'm gonna feel," and when something happens in the game and you're like, "Okay, just take the 24-hour rule to calm down." And then you do naturally, or something happened and you're like, "Alright, sleep on it." And then you do, and naturally in the morning you feel better. Like, I think it was just kind of like, "Oh, I learned about that in class, and it's actually quite relevant to the situation I am in right now." I think that was just kind of like, it's kind of fun to connect school to hockey, honestly.
Do you? I don't know if this was an intentional thing, but what drew? I guess then, what drew you to the science of the brain side of things? Do you think that it had anything to do with you loved sports, and that kind of made you think about, how can I look at the game differently because I'm feeling so much pressure? Or was it just a happy accident and you ended up just also loving science and biology and the mind and psychology, and so that's why you chose that as your major?
I definitely think it was, like, how relevant psychology is. Like, it's everyone interacts with everyone. Like humans are just social beings, so it was kinda that thing like, oh, it's just very relevant, and, I mean, I do wanna eventually go into coaching, and my parents were like, "Psychology would be very relevant to coaching because you learn how things happen, why they happen, what is expected to be the next thing," and I think that's really relevant kinda just with anything you wanna do, but especially with coaching, um, because it just, like you would know more about people and, like, understand things a little better.
Mhm. So I'm going to use this as a bridge to the PWHL and the draft that's upcoming and how you're feeling about that. When you think about this major that you have, psychological science, how important do you think it's going to be now more than ever, as you look at making this next jump, as you look at taking, you talked about the physicality going from junior to collegiate, and how much you needed to really make sure that you were not going to ever take it every time you go into the corners and stuff like that. You're going to be making another big jump into the PWHL. How important is understanding the brain and knowing yourself the way that you do? How important is that going to be in making this jump too?
I think it's just with, like, recognizing stress, like, I mean, everyone who declared for the draft, you can tell it's a stressful period of time. We don't really know what's going on with the league, if there's going to be expansion or how many, and I think just, like, taking into account, like, "Alright, it's stressful, everyone's stressed." Just take a deep breath because right now, like, nobody's playing hockey right now, so it's all out of our control at this point in time, so I think just remembering that.
So, when you think about your entire journey, so that goes all the way back, Little Caesars, of course, we've talked about the impact that that's had, the impact of Holy Cross, and in you understanding the certainly the defensive side of the game, the offensive unlock that you saw at Colgate. How have these experiences, and off the ice, of course, as well, set you up or helped to set you up to take this next step?
I think it's just, like, everything you learn, like, I mean, when you go from youth to college, you're leaving home for the first time. I had never left home before college, and I think it's just kinda like, "Alright, this is happening," and just go with the flow, and things will happen how they're supposed to, and I think that's just kind of important to remember, and then also just, like, learned experiences, like, everything you do is a life experience, and I think that's just important to recognize, especially to the next step, like, now I won't be in university, and a lot of things in university are not given, but, like, you know where you're gonna live and stuff like that. So I think that's just important to note at every level. It just goes up a little bit, but it's gonna be okay, like, in
It's
that
gonna
aspect.
be okay. It's gonna be
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, you've got it. You've done this. You're fine. You're gonna be totally fine. Um, what is it gonna mean to you to be able to play in the professional, like to be playing professional hockey in this next step of your career? What is that gonna mean to you? Because, when you first started, this wasn't an option, as you'd mentioned, and now it is, and you're on the verge of it. What does it mean?
I mean, I like, growing up, it was like, "Oh, I wanna play in the NHL," and it's like, "Oh, you're a girl," like, it's not like that's not exactly going to happen, but that was always the goal, and then you go to college and you're like, "Okay, like, I wanna continue with hockey," but you don't really know what it is, and then all of a sudden it's like, "Okay, this league formed and it's huge," and, some of my friends and I, like the Colgate alum, there was the PWHL game at Madison Square Garden, and there was a huge, like, Colgate alumni event because there were so many in that game, and we all went down to it and we're like, "Wow, we are at a sold out women's hockey game at Madison Square, and this is unbelievable." And any one of us has the opportunity to play in this league, and I think it was just like we were like, "Wow," shell shocked at how big it's become and how awesome it is, like, I love it.
Yeah, does it feel real that you're, like you mentioned, and there's TD Garden, there's attendance records being broken consistently. I'm here in Ottawa. We just the other day sold out the TD place. That was the largest crowd ever at that rink for there. So you're seeing these constant records being broken in terms of attendance and passion and enthusiasm. Does it feel real that you're on the verge of it? Does it feel like do you feel any pressure or do you feel any it's often the conversation comes up about a responsibility to carry that torch or to take that torch from the previous generation and bring it into your own. Do you feel anything like that?
Honestly, it quite frankly doesn't feel real, to be honest. Like, it is unbelievable. It's been a dream of everyone's, and, I mean, my grandma came and visited last week, and she was just talking to me. She's like, "Oh, like, my granddaughter is declared for the PWHL Draft," and her friends at work were like, "What?" Like, they were like, "Oh my god, that is awesome. Like, we are so happy that that is, like, an option," and they knew everything. They knew all the teams, and my grandma was just kinda like, "This is amazing." And in my head, I'm like, "Wow, that actually is, like, really cool," and it's unbelievable that it is a reality, like, we can declare for this draft now.
Mm. Well, of course, I want to ask, on draft night, you hear your name called. Who do you think are going to be some of those people that you think of in that moment as you're, going up on stage or however it ends up playing out? Who are some of those people that you're going to be thinking about as the ones who really helped guide you, helped inspire you, helped maybe drive you to and from the rink, something as literal as that? Who are some of those people that you're going to be thinking of on draft night?
I think instantly my parents are gonna be the first 2. The commitment they put in with me and my brother and having to drive to Detroit from Port Huron, like, it's not a fun drive, it's very boring, frankly, and just all that time and effort they put into it, and finally seeing, like, even just going to college, they were like, "Wow, we're, like, very proud of you." And then, obviously, my grandparents, like, they love coming to just watch hockey. I come from a hockey family, everyone just wants to watch, and my siblings too were very competitive with each other and growing up, whether it was me and my brother breaking the garage door from checking each other so hard into it or playing soccer with my sister in the backyard and throwing each other through the grass, like, just thinking about all that stuff that has led to everything.
Yeah, and the giant smile on your face as you're recalling those stories. That tells me how important those moments were for you, for sure. Well, of course, good luck in that night. Of course, I'm going to be cheering for you, and as you continue into your professional career, we are going to wrap up today's episode with the final buzzer segment. It's a fun, rapid fire way really, I always say it, it's just mostly you can take as long as you want in answering the question. I'm just going
Okay.
to try not to be Mr. Chatty Pants over here and ask a lot of follow-up questions. That's really what this is about. And a great way to continue getting to know you a little bit more. We're going to start with what is your go-to pregame meal?
I'm a big fan of a turkey sandwich, whether it's like Jimmy John's, Jersey Mike's, or the dining hall.
Okay. I've only ever heard of one of those places, but that's okay.
Oh.
Uh, do you have a favorite way to reset after a game?
Actually, this year, recently, we started after like say we lost on Friday, we'd go maybe get like ice cream at the
Mhm.
local convenience store. So that's a good way just to hang out after and not think about hockey.
As soon as you started answering that, I was like, I hope this ends with them getting ice cream. So I'm glad that
Yeah.
that's exactly how that happened. What's one word that your teammates would use to describe you?
Fingers crossed. I hope they would say I'm pretty funny. I think I'm
Mm.
funny, but I'm kidding. Hopefully that, but I don't know if they would say that.
Yeah, I think they would. I think they would. What's something that people may not know about you?
I'm actually a huge history buff, and I love like history movies or war movies. Just learning about that stuff is just so interesting to me.
Okay, I know that I said that I wasn't going to ask any follow-up questions. Inevitably, it's going to happen. Do you have like I'm not going to say an all-time favorite because it might be a little bit difficult unless you do know exactly what your all-time favorite movie is, history movie. But do you have like a have you ever thought of like a top 3 even?
The top 3, I definitely think Fury, the tank
Yeah.
movie is way up there.
Yeah,
All
great choice.
Quiet on the Western Front is also very good.
Okay, good choices. Okay, nice. Okay. Um, I want to know as well as we wrap up if, you've had so much success over your career and now, when you think about again, Little Caesars, Holy Cross, Colgate, now with this exciting next chapter of your career, thinking back to your younger self, what do you think you would tell her about that journey that she's about to embark on?
I think I would just tell myself everything happens for a reason and everyone's path is different. So don't compare yourself because your path is going to be different than everyone's. So
I love that because it's advice that anyone can use anywhere in life. So it's very universal. I appreciate that. And that wraps up the final buzzer segment of the show, as well as today's episode. Casey, I just want to say again, thank you so much for taking the time to join the show, share your story. This has been an absolute blast. It's easy to root for you. It's been easy to root for you throughout your career. It's certainly going to be easy to root for you on draft night and into the PWHL. I can't wait to cheer you on. Thank you so much and good luck as you embark on the next chapter.
thank you for having me. This was fun.
And if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to like, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your fellow hockey fans. Your support helps me to continue bringing you stories just like Casey's from around the world of women's hockey. I'm Chris Sinclair. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll catch you next time on Rinkside Rundown.